The psychology of people who stay silent. Have you ever walked into a room full of people, everyone talking, laughing, competing for attention, and noticed one person who just said nothing? They weren't nervous. They weren't lost. They were watching. And somehow, that person made you more curious than anyone else in the room. There's a reason for that. Today, we're going to explore one of the most misunderstood personality types in psychology. People who choose silence. Not because they have nothing to say, but because they understand something most people never will. By the end of this video, you'll understand the hidden psychology behind their silence, why it gives them an enormous advantage in life, and how you can start developing this rare trait yourself. Stay until the end, because I'm going to reveal the dark side of silence that most people never talk about. Let's begin. Let's start by destroying a myth. When most people see a quiet person, they make an assumption. They think, that person is shy, insecure. Maybe they don't have anything interesting to offer. This is one of the most dangerous misunderstandings in human psychology. Carl Jung, one of the greatest minds in the history of psychology, spent decades studying the inner world of introverted people. And what he found was shocking to many people at the time. Jung said that introverts don't lack an inner life. They have too much of one. While an extrovert processes the world by talking about it, the introvert processes it internally, deeply, quietly, and with extraordinary precision. Their mind is constantly at work, analyzing, pattern matching, making connections that others simply don't see. Think about it this way. Imagine two people listening to the same conversation. One interrupts every few minutes, sharing their thoughts out loud. The other listens completely and only speaks when they have something that genuinely adds to what was said. Which person is more likely to say something truly meaningful? Research published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that people who speak less in group settings are often perceived as less intelligent by others. But when their contributions were measured objectively, they were consistently more accurate and insightful than those who spoke frequently. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is discipline. So what exactly makes someone who stays silent psychologically different from everyone else? Let's break it down into 5 core traits. The first and most fundamental trait: silent people are extraordinary observers. While most people are busy preparing what they're going to say next, the silent person is doing something far more valuable. They're watching. They notice the slight tension in someone's voice when they say they're fine, but clearly aren't. They see who looks at whom when a difficult topic comes up. They pick up on the unspoken power dynamics in a room within minutes of entering it. This is not a passive skill. It is an active, disciplined form of intelligence. Sun Tzu wrote in The Art of War, "Know your enemy and know yourself, and you will not be imperiled in 100 battles." The silent person doesn't need 100 battles. They've already studied the terrain before anyone else has even noticed there's a battlefield. Information is power, and the one who speaks less collects far more of it. The second trait connects deeply to Stoic philosophy. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, one of the most powerful men who ever lived, wrote in his private journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Silent people understand this instinctively. When someone provokes them, insults them, or tries to pull them into an emotional reaction, they pause. They breathe. They choose their response instead of simply reacting. This is what the Stoics called the pause between stimulus and response. It is arguably the most powerful psychological skill a human being can develop. Think about how most people behave when they feel attacked or threatened. They react immediately. They say things they regret. They give the other person exactly what they wanted, an emotional reaction that reveals everything about their inner state. The silent person refuses to play that game. Their silence in those moments is not weakness. It is mastery. Epictetus said, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." The person who can stay calm and quiet while others are losing their composure, that person controls every room they walk into. We live in a culture that glorifies quick responses, instant opinions, and loud confidence. We've been taught that hesitation is weakness, that if you don't have an answer immediately, you must not know the answer. But silent people operate on a different timeline. They understand that most problems are created by impulsive decisions, that most regrettable words are spoken in the heat of the moment, that the person who waits, thinks, and then acts almost always outperforms the person who acts first and thinks later. Psychologists call this response inhibition, the ability to hold back an immediate impulse in favor of a more considered reaction. Studies have consistently shown that people with higher response inhibition make better decisions, build stronger relationships, and are more successful across almost every domain of life. But here's what's fascinating. Response inhibition is not just a personality trait. It's a skill that can be trained. Every time a silent person chooses to pause instead of react, they are literally strengthening the neural pathways in their prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for rational thought and long-term planning. Their silence is not inaction. It's a form of mental discipline that compounds over time. This is one of the most underrated traits of silent people. Most people are terrified of silence. Think about what happens in a conversation when a pause lasts more than a few seconds. People rush to fill it. They say something, anything, just to break the discomfort. Why? Because silence forces you to be present. It strips away all the noise and distraction and leaves you alone with your thoughts. For someone who hasn't developed a strong internal world, that is deeply uncomfortable. But for the person who stays silent, silence is home. They have learned to sit with uncertainty, to be comfortable not knowing, to resist the urge to immediately resolve every tension or fill every gap. This has profound implications for their relationships, their decision-making, and their inner peace. In negotiations, one of the most studied applications of silence, research shows that the first person to speak after a long pause almost always makes a concession. The silent person wins not by saying more, but by saying less. In relationships, the person who can sit in silence with another person without anxiety creates a depth of connection that words rarely achieve. And internally, the person who is comfortable with silence rarely needs external validation to feel secure. They have built something more valuable, an unshakable inner world. This brings us to the fifth and perhaps most powerful trait. Look around you. Most of human behavior, The constant social media posts, the need to be seen, heard, and agreed with. The anxiety when someone doesn't respond. The way people change their opinions the moment they face pushback. Almost all of it is driven by one thing: the desperate need for external validation. Silent people have largely freed themselves from this trap. They don't need you to agree with them to feel confident. They don't require praise to feel competent. They don't change who they are based on who's in the room. Carl Jung called this process individuation, the journey of becoming fully yourself, independent of what others expect or project onto you. He believed it was the highest form of psychological development a human being could achieve. Most people never get there. They spend their entire lives performing for an audience that isn't even watching. The silent person has stopped performing. They have turned inward, developed their own values, their own standards, their own compass, and they move through the world from that place of internal authority. This is why they seem so grounded, so calm, so impossible to rattle. They have nothing to prove. This is the twist. Now, I promised you the dark side, and here it is. Not all silence is born from wisdom and self-mastery. Silence can also be a weapon. In psychology, there is a concept called strategic silence, the deliberate use of non-communication to gain power over another person. You may know it better as the silent treatment. And here's what makes it so dangerous: it works. Research in social psychology shows that being ignored, being given the silent treatment, activates the same neural pathways as physical pain. It is one of the most powerful forms of emotional aggression precisely because it is invisible. There's nothing to argue against, nothing to defend, just nothing. Narcissists, manipulators, and people with dark triad personality traits often use strategic silence as a form of punishment and control. They withdraw communication to make the other person feel worthless, confused, and desperate for reconnection. This is the shadow side of silence. So how do you tell the difference between the silence of the wise and the silence of the manipulator? There are three key markers. First, intent. Wise silence is observational. It is present, engaged, and respectful. Manipulative silence is punitive. It is designed to wound. Second, consistency. The psychologically healthy silent person is quiet in most situations. It is simply who they are. The manipulator uses silence selectively, deploying it as a weapon when they feel challenged or when they want to control someone's behavior. Third, how it makes you feel. In the presence of genuine quiet strength, you feel calm, respected, perhaps even inspired. In the presence of manipulative silence, you feel anxious, confused, and like you've done something wrong, even when you haven't. As Friedrich Nietzsche wrote, "He who fights with monsters should be careful lest he thereby become a monster." Know the difference, and be honest with yourself about which kind of silence you practice. So, you've seen the psychology. You understand why silence is so powerful. Now, how do you actually develop it? Here are three concrete practices that you can start today. Practice 1, the 3-second rule. Before you respond to anything, a question, a provocation, a request, pause for 3 full seconds. 3 seconds feels like a long time in conversation. It will feel uncomfortable at first. People may even think you're unsure of yourself. But what's actually happening is this: you're giving your prefrontal cortex, your rational brain, time to override your amygdala, your reactive brain. In 3 seconds, impulsive becomes deliberate. Reaction becomes response. Start small. Practice it in low-stakes conversations, then bring it into harder ones. Over time, it becomes automatic. Practice 2. The observation exercise. The next time you're in any social setting, a meeting, a dinner, a party, set yourself a quiet challenge. Observe 3 things about each person you interact with that they haven't explicitly told you. Read their body language. Listen to what they're not saying. Notice where their eyes go, who they defer to, what they avoid talking about. You're not judging. You're developing your ability to read the room, the single most valuable social skill a human being can possess. Practice 3. Reframe. Silence as strength. This is perhaps the most important. Every time you feel the urge to fill a silence, to say something just because it's quiet, to share your opinion when it wasn't asked for, to react when you should simply observe, notice that urge. And ask yourself, am I speaking because I have something valuable to contribute, or am I speaking because I'm uncomfortable with the silence? Silence is not a void to be filled. It is a space to be inhabited. The more you inhabit it with intention, the more powerful you become. Let's bring it all together. People who stay silent are not passive. They are not empty. They are not hiding. They are observing more than anyone else in the room. They are in complete command of their emotional state. They think before they act. They are comfortable where others are not. And they have freed themselves from the prison of needing external validation. That is not weakness. That is one of the rarest and most powerful forms of psychological strength that exists. The question isn't whether you're naturally a quiet person. The question is whether you're willing to develop the discipline that silence requires. Now, I want to hear from you. Are you someone who tends to stay quiet? Or are you working on developing this trait? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one. If this video made you think differently about silence and about yourself, hit the subscribe button. Every week we go deep into psychology, philosophy, and the hidden mechanics of the human mind. And next week, we're going to explore something that will change the way you see every relationship in your life. The psychology of people who never apologize. Until then, stay sharp, stay quiet, and as always, understand the mind, master the game.